I'm Charlie Ericksen, originally Chuck when I was a little boy. I hit age 18, and to be an 18-year-old, as an 18-year-old, you could get drafted in those days. So rather than, and that way you could, if you joined the National Guard, when you hit 18 years old, you then couldn't get drafted. So to beat the draft, I signed up to the National Guard, and I did my National Guard thing where we go 2 weeks. Every summer we went to some camp and learned how to fire a gun. So I spent two quarters in Stanford, and sort of majored in bridge and pinochle, and went from there. My dad, who had paid my way for the first two quarters, decided he was wasting his money sending me to college. I had passing grades, but not much better, I don't think. But they did say I was permanently a student at Stanford after I passed in the summer. So I didn't particularly want to go back to school again. But if I signed up for Mexico City College, I could go to Mexico at the federal expense, which is what I did. I didn't know any Spanish. I knew good morning maybe, but I didn't know it. But I figured, well, we'll learn it down there, which we did. I had a Spanish teacher who was, they had a little more freedom who they hire. She was a very bright teacher, except that she was almost blind teaching us Spanish. And if you sat in the second row of her Spanish class, you could put a beer bottle on your desk and she wouldn't know you were having beer. While I was at Mexico City College, one of the girls I knew was an anthropology major, and she found this little village down in Oaxaca, Mexico. Well, it's a very southern part of Mexico, and well, with one other state behind that, Chiapas. She found this little village, which was La Ventosa, and where if you bought beer from the owner of the little seashore place where you just could order basically soft drinks or maybe fish or something like that, you could sleep in their hammocks at night free. And so that was, I thought, God, that's a great deal. I like that, because I liked beer, and it was a nice trip. Yeah, and so that's how so while I would go there a few times, I came back to the States, got a little bored doing what I was still working for a newspaper as pretty much a copy boy, and decided I want to go to Mexico. And I came back and worked a while and saved up $3,000, which was quite a bit of money, figuring I want to go down there and live for a year in this place where I could live for free. and I bought a Jeep for $400. It was painted red, the Jeep was, and had a wonderful time driving my Jeep down to Mexico, and we drove down to La Ventosa, and and we had the good fortune that the school teacher, that it was his first year, that Mexico City sent him down. He was 19 years old when he went down to Mexico to teach the students. Well, he fell in love with a 13-year-old student, and they eloped. And I arrived at a perfect time, because there was this big place where he lived, which is just a dirt floor, Carrizo built place, that became vacant, and I got to live there for $7 a month. And things went real good. But so I of course would go fishing with the man in the village and do. The only thing I couldn't do, sometimes they took me. They had baseball games with other villages in the area, and a couple of times when I went with the village, went to villages where. There I was almost 6 feet tall, and obviously not a native of that village, that the other villages protested that I couldn't play because I was Babe Ruth and I was a ringer. And that's where I met Tana. And Tana's life up to that point was that her mother had leased her out to Mexican families where she'd go up to Puebla and be a maid for months. And she had just come back into the village when I got there, and she would always sell raspadas at the basketball games in the village. She made the best raspadas you could possibly have. She made wonderful raspadas, and she made mine a little better than anybody else's, the way I assumed it was, that she had to like me because she made such good raspadas for me. A lot of the men, the fathers in the village, wanted me to get connected with their daughters, and I went and asked Don Jesus, who was the one who I rented the place from, who ran the Ramada down along the beach. He was. I said, I don't know. I was feeling in a Marian mood, I guess, a little bit. And so I started asking him about all the women in town, who did he think would make the best wife? And he said, and everyone else said, Tana es una trabajadora. Yeah, my criteria was she didn't particularly, she didn't come on to me, nor did her mother. Her mother didn't want me to get near her because she was looking farther ahead, saying, oh, they're going to get married and they're going to disappear and I'll never see my daughter again, which is what happened. I started dating her, and it was a point where you could not, I could not take her anywhere so long as a chaperone didn't go with us. It might be her brother, her uncle, anybody. I could hold hands with her, but that was about it, with the chaperone along all the time. And finally the circus came to town with a Ferris wheel, big Ferris wheel, and Tana and I got to ride together on the Ferris wheel. And when we reached the top, we looked down to see where the chaperone was, and we couldn't see the chaperone, whoever it was that time, and the chaperone couldn't see us. So that was the first time I was able to plant a kiss on Tana, and she was very receptive.
What advice would you give someone in that situation where the person you're interested in does not share your culture or your language?
There are things more important than knowing a different language or understanding a different culture. There's a certain wonder and charm into finding your princess out there on an island.
Tú eres la tristeza de mis ojos que lloran en silencio por tu amor.